After 8 years together, I proposed at a fancy restaurant and she said no loud enough for everyone to hear 3 days later. She was keeping her options open, with a studio apartment downtown. That phrase haunted me until I discovered what other options she had been keeping open behind my back. I am still trying to process what happened 3 days ago, and I honestly don't know where to start. I am Logan, 22 years old, 4th-year plumbing apprentice here in Denver. And until this week, I thought I was going to marry my girlfriend of 8 years. 8 years. We started dating when we were 14. Ava and I have been together since freshman year of high school, moved in together right after graduation, been splitting rent on this little place near Sloan's Lake for almost 4 years now. She just got accepted into a nursing program downtown. I am working toward my journeyman certification. Everything seemed like it was falling into place. I had been planning this proposal for months, saved up for 3 months to book this high-end sushi place in the Highlands, the kind of spot where they have actual tablecloths and the waiters wear ties. Got her favorite flowers, picked out a wine she had mentioned liking, the works. We are sitting there after dinner sharing this matcha ice cream dessert she loves, and everything feels perfect. She is laughing at something on her phone, looking beautiful in that dress I bought her for her birthday. The restaurant is softly lit, other couples around us having quiet conversations. So I take a breath, reach into my jacket, and get down on one knee right there next to our table. Ava, we have been together for 8 years. You are my best friend, my partner, my everything. Will you marry me? The entire restaurant goes quiet. I am holding this ring I spent 2 months of overtime shifts paying for. Heart pounding, waiting for what I thought would be the best moment of my life. She looks at me, looks at the ring, looks around at all the people watching us, and says, clear as day, number not, I need to think about it. Not this is so sudden. Just number. The silence was deafening. I stayed there on one knee for what felt like forever, trying to process what just happened. The couple at the next table was staring. The waiter who had been walking over with champagne just stopped mid-step. I finally stood up, put the ring back in my pocket, and somehow managed to say okay without my voice cracking, waved off the staff who were clearly as shocked as I was, paid the check, and we drove home in complete silence. That night, after we got home, she tried to explain, said we are too young and need to grow as individuals before taking such a big step. But here is the thing that has been messing with my head. She still wanted to keep dating, still wanted everything to stay exactly the same, just without the commitment. We can revisit this in a few years, she said. Marriage doesn't have to be right now. But guys, 8 years isn't right now. 8 years is a significant chunk of our lives. And if someone isn't ready for marriage after 8 years, when exactly are they going to be ready? The next morning, I tried to have a calm conversation about timeline. Like, if not now, when? What would need to change for her to feel ready? That is when she dropped the second bomb. I have actually been having coffee with Caleb regularly, about once a week for the past month. Caleb, her childhood best friend who she dated in middle school before we got together. The same Caleb who moved away junior year and just moved back to Denver 6 weeks ago to start emergency medical technician training. Just friends, she said quickly, when she saw my face. We are just catching up. It is totally innocent. Maybe I am crazy, but if you are having weekly coffee dates with your ex behind your boyfriend's back, and then you publicly reject his marriage proposal, those things might be connected. I asked her directly, when you think about your future, do you see me in it? She got frustrated and said I was putting pressure on her and making everything more complicated than it needs to be. That is when something clicked for me. This isn't about timing. This isn't about being too young or needing to grow. This is about her having one foot out the door while keeping me around as a safety net. So I made a decision. I told her we needed to figure this out properly. Either we are building a future together, or we are not. No more living in limbo. I gave her 3 options. We go to couples therapy. She stops having private meetings with Caleb, and we set a clear timeline for making a real decision about our relationship. Or we end things now, or she needs time to think, but I am not going to sit around indefinitely waiting for her to decide if I am worth committing to. She said I was being controlling and putting too much pressure on the relationship. But here is what I realized in the 3 days since this all went down. I have been doing all the emotional labor in this relationship for months. I have been the one suggesting date nights, planning our future, talking about moving somewhere bigger when she finishes nursing school, and she has been going along with it while secretly meeting up with her ex and apparently never intending to actually commit to us. Looking back now, there were signs I ignored. She had been less interested in talking about our future lately. When I would bring up maybe getting a bigger place together near her campus, she had changed the subject. When I suggested we start a shared savings account for long-term goals, she said she wasn't ready for that level of financial commitment. I am done being someone's backup plan. I am done begging someone to choose me who clearly doesn't want to. So Reddit, am I being unreasonable? Is asking for commitment after 8 years really too much pressure? Because what I discovered after I stopped accepting maybe later as an answer, it is so much worse than just cold feet. Update 1. What I am about to tell you is going to sound unbelievable, but I have proof. Yesterday morning, I came home early from my shift to grab some tools I had forgotten. Ava wasn't there, but there was an envelope on our kitchen counter addressed to her from something called Urban Flats downtown. It had been opened, and the contents were sitting right there, a lease agreement for a studio apartment with move-in scheduled for next month. I took photos with my phone. I am looking at them right now and I still cannot believe it. The lease is in her name only. The application date was 3 days after my proposal. 3 days after she told me she needed time to think about our future. She was already securing her own separate future. But that wasn't even the worst part. When she got home that evening, I confronted her about the lease. Logan, I can explain you applied for an apartment 3 days after turning down my proposal, using the rejection as your opportunity to start planning your exit. Long pause. I was just keeping my options open. Keeping your options open. Ava, we have been together for 8 years. We live together. We share everything. How is that keeping your options open? I needed to know I had somewhere to go if things didn't work out between us. Things like what? Like me asking you to marry me. Were you planning for things not to work out? That is when she started crying and said she had been feeling unsure about our relationship and needed a backup plan in case we couldn't work through our issues. So why didn't you just talk to me about these issues instead of secretly planning to leave? I wasn't planning to leave. I just wanted to have options. But here is what really got to me. My coworker Marcus had mentioned seeing Ava apartment hunting downtown about 2 weeks ago. He had waved at her through the window of some leasing office. But when he brought it up casually at work, I had dismissed it. She is probably just looking at places for after nursing school, I had told him. Now I realized she wasn't planning for after nursing school. She was planning for after us. I found her planner on the counter later that night. She has always been obsessive about color-coding her schedule work in blue, school in green, personal stuff in pink. For the past month, there are pink dots scattered throughout her week. Coffee appointments, all scheduled during my late shift hours, all lasting about 2 hours, all marked with just C. And there were new additions I hadn't seen before. Apartment viewing from 2 weeks ago, the same day Marcus saw her. Application paperwork from 4 days ago. Security deposit from yesterday. She has been systematically exploring her exit options while I was working overtime to pay for an engagement ring. This morning, our elderly landlord, Mrs. Dunbar, knocked on our door. She is this sweet old lady who lives downstairs and mentioned that our lease requires her to keep security footage of the common areas. Logan, honey, she said. I hope you don't mind me asking, but is everything okay? I have been seeing that young man around the building during the day when you are at work. What young man? I asked, though I already knew. Tall, sandy hair, drives a blue Honda. He has been coming by maybe 3 or 4 times in the past few weeks. Always when your girlfriend is here but you are not. I just wanted to make sure you knew, in case there were any security concerns. Caleb drives a blue Honda, so not only has Ava been meeting him for coffee, she has been bringing him to our apartment, our shared space. The place we have called home for 4 years. When I asked her about it, she said Caleb had offered to help her think through some life decisions, since she has been stressed with nursing school prep and our relationship issues. What life decisions? I asked. Just general stuff, future planning. He has been really supportive during this confusing time. Ava, You have been discussing our relationship problems with your ex-boyfriend in our apartment while I am at work. It is not like that, Logan. He is just a friend who happens to have some perspective on relationships. And what perspective is he giving you exactly? That is when she got defensive and said I was being jealous and making everything about Caleb when the real issue was that we wanted different things. You are right, I said. We do want different things. I want a partner who talks to me about relationship problems instead of discussing them with her ex. I want someone who includes me in major life decisions instead of secretly planning alternative futures. She started crying and said she was confused and didn't know how to handle the pressure I was putting on the relationship. Ava, what pressure? Asking you to marry me after 8 years. Expecting honesty about apartment hunting. Wanting to be included in conversations about our future. These aren't unreasonable pressures, they are basic relationship expectations. This is when I realized that all those times over the past few months when she seemed distracted or uninterested in our conversations about the future, she wasn't just being non-committal, she was actively planning a different future that didn't include me. Tomorrow, I am going to sit her down and give her one final choice. We either commit to working on this together with complete honesty and professional help, or we end this cleanly so she can pursue whatever future she has been planning without stringing me along. But I am done being kept in the dark about my own relationship. Update 2. So last week I told Ava we needed to have one final conversation about our relationship. No more dancing around the issues. No more I need time to think. Just a clear decision about whether we are moving forward together or ending things. We met at this quiet coffee shop near Sloan's Lake yesterday morning. Neutral territory, public enough to keep things civil, but private enough to have a real conversation. I came prepared. I had written down exactly what I wanted to say so I wouldn't get emotional or lose track of my points. Ava, I said, I love you. We have been together for 8 years and I want to make this work. But I need to know you are actually committed to us, not just keeping me around while you figure out what else is available. She started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. If we are going to continue this relationship, I need 3 things. First, cancel the apartment lease, and let's find a place together that we both choose. Second, stop having private meetings with Caleb. If you want to maintain a friendship, it needs to include me sometimes. Not be this separate thing you do behind my back. Third, let's start couples therapy so we can work through this with professional help. I looked her directly in the eyes. If you cannot agree to those 3 things, then we need to end this relationship today. No more limbo. No more maybe later. Today, she started crying immediately. Logan, you are putting so much pressure on me. I feel like you are trying to control who I can be friends with. I am not trying to control anything. I am trying to understand why my girlfriend of 8 years is secretly apartment hunting, while regularly meeting with her ex-boyfriend. These aren't controlling demands. They are basic relationship boundaries. But what if I need more time to think about it? Ava, how much time do you need? You have had weeks to think about it since the proposal. You have had time to look at apartments, time to schedule regular coffee dates, time to discuss our relationship with Caleb. The only thing you haven't had time for is being honest with me. She kept crying and saying she was confused and overwhelmed and needed space to figure out her feelings. That is when I realized something. She wasn't confused. She knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted to keep me around as security while she explored other options. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too. Ava, I said gently, I think you have already made your decision. You have been planning alternatives for weeks. You have been building a relationship with Caleb. You have been preparing for a life without me while telling me you need time to think. The only reason you haven't ended things is because you want me as a backup plan. That is not true. Then cancel the apartment lease. Right now, call them and cancel it. Long silence. I already paid the security deposit. I cannot get that back. You can lose the deposit if it means saving our relationship. Unless the apartment is more important to you than we are. More silence. Ava, I am going to make this easy for you. I am ending our relationship. Not because I don't love you, but because I love both of us enough to stop this limbo we have been living in. She started sobbing. Logan, please don't do this. We can work it out. How? You just told me you cannot cancel the apartment because you would lose the deposit. That tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. I stayed calm and kind, but I was firm. I want you to be happy, and clearly that is not going to happen with me. You deserve to figure out what you really want without feeling obligated to someone you are not sure about. And I deserve to be with someone who is excited about building a future with me, not someone who sees me as a safety net. We spent the next hour talking through practical stuff. I suggested we close our shared bank accounts, split the utilities, and figure out a move-out timeline. I told her Copper would stay with me since the microchip is in my name and I have been his primary caretaker. But she could visit him the first weekend of every month if she wanted. She called me selfish for taking the dog. But honestly, I think she was just looking for something to be angry about, so she didn't have to feel guilty about the situation she had created. That evening, I started the process of untangling our shared life, removed her from my bank accounts, changed passwords, called the utility companies. It is amazing how much bureaucratic stuff you accumulate over 4 years of living together. But here is where this story takes another twist. 2 days later, I am home alone watching Netflix with Copper when my phone starts blowing up with notifications. Multiple people had tagged me in an Instagram story. It was Caleb's account, a video from some outdoor concert downtown earlier that day, with Copper visible in the frame, and Ava's voice clearly audible in the background talking to the dog. The caption read, "Great night out with this good boy." I screenshot everything and texted Ava, "Explain this." Her response, "Caleb offered to take Copper for a walk while I was packing. I still had my key. I thought you were working late shift." But I hadn't worked late shift that day. I had been home by 6 p.m., so she had taken Copper without asking. During the day while I was at work, to hang out with Caleb. The next morning I found out why Copper seemed off when I got home. He had an upset stomach all night. When I asked Ava about it, she said Caleb had bought him some fancy organic treats from a downtown pet store because he felt bad that Copper seemed stressed about the changes at home. He was just being nice. Logan, don't make it into something. It is not. Ava. The day after we break up and discuss custody arrangements for our dog, you take him to hang out with your ex-boyfriend without asking me, and let him feed Copper treats that made him sick. When I pointed out how inappropriate this was, she said I was being petty and using Copper to control her. I am not controlling anyone. I am protecting my dog from being used as a prop in whatever relationship she is building with someone else. The good news is, I am starting to see the light at the end of this tunnel. My coworker Marcus helped me sign up to take the journeyman exam next month. If I pass, it is a 20% raise and opens up opportunities for side work. I have been studying every night. And honestly, it feels good to focus on building my own future instead of trying to convince someone to want one with me. Mrs. Dunbar stopped by today with a plate of cookies and mentioned that the building's security cameras captured everything in the hallways. She said she keeps the footage for a few months, just in case anyone ever needs it for documentation purposes. I am not planning anything legal, but it is nice to know there is a record of the timeline if I ever need to protect myself. Final update coming soon. Because Ava's reaction when she realized I was actually moving on with my life, and the conversation that finally gave me the closure I needed. Let's just say that sometimes the best response to someone's backup plan is showing them you were never their plan A anyway. Update 3. So it has been 3 weeks since I ended things with Ava. 3 weeks of her living in that studio apartment downtown, me getting used to having the house to myself, and both of us starting to figure out what our lives look like separately. I took the journeyman exam last week and passed. It is a 20% raise and opens up opportunities for side jobs and eventually starting my own business. My foreman has already started giving me more complex projects, and I bought a used work truck last weekend. Nothing fancy, but it is mine, and I got my name stenciled on the side. For the first time in months, I felt like I was building something for myself instead of trying to convince someone else to build something with me. Yesterday, Ava texted asking if we could meet at Sloan's Lake to talk about everything. I almost said no, but I figured we could both use some closure. We met by the water around sunset. Copper came with me. He has been my constant companion through all of this, and honestly, he seems much more relaxed now that there is less tension in the house. Ava looked different, tired, maybe, less put together than usual. "Logan," she said, "I need to tell you something. Things with Caleb didn't work out the way I expected." I stayed quiet and let her continue. "It turns out he wasn't looking for anything serious. When I told him I had ended things with you and was ready to explore what we could be, he said he wasn't interested in that level of commitment. He just wanted someone to hang out with while he got settled in Denver." The irony wasn't lost on me, but I didn't point it out. "I made a huge mistake," she continued. "You were the best thing in my life, and I threw it away because I got scared of commitment. But now I realize what I lost." She started crying. "Logan, I know I hurt you badly, but do you think there is any chance we could try again? I am ready now. I know what I want. And it is you." I took a deep breath and really thought about my answer. 3 weeks ago, hearing those words would have made me want to run back to her immediately. But sitting there, watching copper chase ducks at the water's edge, thinking about my new truck with my name on it, remembering how peaceful the house has been without constant uncertainty and tension, I realized something. I didn't want her back. Not because I was angry or trying to punish her, but because I had gotten a taste of what it felt like to be genuinely excited about my own future. And I had learned the difference between someone choosing me and someone settling for me after their other option didn't work out. "Ava," I said, "I appreciate you being honest about what happened with Caleb, and I am sorry it didn't work out the way you hoped. So can we try again?" "No," I said gently. "We cannot." "Why?" "I know I made mistakes, but people can change. I can be better. I don't doubt that you can change, but I have changed too. These past 3 weeks have shown me what I actually want in a relationship, and it is not someone who has to convince themselves to choose me." I looked at her directly. "When you think about our 8 years together, what do you remember?" Because I remember always being the one to suggest date nights, plan our future, bring up moving in together, talk about marriage. I was always the one pushing us forward while you went along with it because it was comfortable and safe. That is not Ava. You were apartment hunting within days of my proposal. You were discussing our relationship problems with your ex instead of with me. You kept me as your safety net while you figured out if there was something better available. That is not love. That is convenience." She started crying harder. "But I realize now that I was wrong. I want to be with you. I believe you do. But wanting to be with me because your other option didn't work out isn't the same as choosing me because you genuinely want to build a life together." I stood up and called Copper over. "Ava, I hope you find what you are looking for. I really do. But I need to be with someone who doesn't need to lose me to realize they want me." We talked for a few more minutes. She asked if we could at least stay in touch, maybe be friends. I told her I needed space for now, but maybe someday in the future when we would both moved on completely. That was yesterday. Today, I woke up in my quiet house, made coffee for one, took Copper for a run around the neighborhood, and started planning some side contracting work I want to pursue. I texted my mom. I am good. And for the first time in months, I actually meant it. Denver's sky was clear this morning. I have got my journeyman certification, my truck, my dog, and a future. I am excited about building. The door to that old relationship is closed, but mine is wide open. The funny thing is, looking back now, I can see all the signs I ignored. The way she would get distant when I talked about our future, how she always seemed to be looking over my shoulder instead of looking at me when we talked about serious stuff. The way she had changed the subject whenever I brought up long-term plans. I thought she was just cautious or practical, but she was actually just not that interested in building something permanent with me. And that is okay. It doesn't make her a bad person, it just makes us incompatible.